Ha! Why is it so hard for Alden Richards and Maine Mendoza to work together again? They once had millions of fans screaming for them to be together on screen, so why does getting Alden Richards and Maine Mendoza into the same project seem so difficult today? For fans who grew up watching AlDub, this question can bring back a flood of memories. Alden Richards and Maine Mendoza weren't simply another television pairing. They became one of the biggest entertainment phenomena in the Philippines, with Kalyeserye turning their on-screen chemistry into something fans couldn't get enough of. But after all those unforgettable moments, one thing has become increasingly noticeable. Alden and Maine don't appear together in projects as often as many fans would like. And naturally, fans have questions. From everyday screen chemistry to rare collaborations. During the height of AlDub, seeing Alden and Maine together almost felt normal. They were everywhere. Television, movies, endorsements, events, special appearances. Their names were frequently mentioned together and fans became accustomed to seeing them as a pair. But as the years passed, both stars began developing their own careers. Maine explored different acting roles and projects outside the AlDub formula. Alden continued expanding his career as an actor, singer, host and television personality. The result? The two stars increasingly appeared on separate professional paths, and for fans who still remember the days when they could see them together almost every day, that change can feel enormous. But is there really a problem between them? This is where fans need to be careful. It's tempting to assume that a lack of projects together automatically means there is conflict behind the scenes. But that's not necessarily the case. Entertainment careers are complicated. Actors have different contracts, schedules, networks, management teams, personal commitments, and creative priorities. Finding the right project for two major stars isn't as simple as saying, let's put Alden and Maine together again. There has to be a story worth telling. There has to be timing. There has to be availability, and perhaps most importantly, both performers have to be comfortable with the direction of the project. The AlDub shadow is also huge. Imagine being an actor who became famous as part of one of the most recognizable love teams in Philippine entertainment. Every time you appear with your former screen partner, people immediately start comparing it with the past. Fans remember the old chemistry, they remember Kalyeserye, they remember the tamang panahon. They remember every little moment. That can be both a blessing and a challenge. Alden and Maine have built individual identities beyond AlDub, but whenever they appear together, the old fandom naturally comes rushing back. That's a lot of expectations for any new project to carry. Fans don't just want a project, they want the magic back. This may be the biggest challenge. If Alden and Maine announced a new project tomorrow, fans wouldn't simply expect an ordinary movie or television series. They would expect AlDub magic. They would want the chemistry, the humor, the romance, the little looks, the emotional moments. And that's a difficult standard to meet. A new project would have to stand on its own, while also satisfying fans who remember an entirely different era. And that's why the idea of a reunion is so powerful. The longer Alden and Maine remain apart professionally, the more exciting even the possibility of another collaboration becomes. A simple photograph can trigger thousands of comments. A short interaction can become a trending topic, and the announcement of a major project, that could be enormous. Because fans wouldn't just be watching two actors reunite, they would be watching a piece of their past return. Alden has continued moving forward. Alden Richards has spent years establishing himself beyond AlDub. He has taken on different acting roles and continued working in entertainment, allowing audiences to see different sides of his abilities. That's important, because Alden isn't simply half of AlDub. He's an individual performer with his own career, ambitions, and creative direction. And the same is true for Maine. Maine has built her own identity too. Maine Mendoza also moved beyond the character that first made her famous. Her career expanded into acting, hosting endorsements, and other entertainment projects. She eventually became known not only as Maine Mendoza of AlDub, but as an entertainer in her own right. That evolution is a natural part of growing as a celebrity. The same fans who loved AlDub have had to watch both stars become different versions of themselves, and that's actually something worth celebrating. Maybe the problem isn't why can't they work together. Maybe the better question is, what kind of project would actually be worthy of their reunion? Because putting Alden and Maine together simply because fans want it might not be enough. They need a story, something fresh, something that allows them to show how much they've grown. Imagine a project where they aren't simply recreating the old AlDub formula. Imagine them playing completely different characters, maybe a mature romantic drama, maybe a comedy, maybe two former friends who meet again years later, or perhaps something completely unexpected. That could be far more interesting than simply trying to recreate Kalyeserye. The fans are still waiting, and that's the fascinating part. Despite the years that have passed, the interest hasn't completely disappeared. There are still fans who would immediately click on a headline announcing Alden Richards and Maine Mendoza reunite for a new project. The comments would probably be filled with nostalgia. Old AlDub supporters would return. New viewers would become curious, and social media would undoubtedly have something to say. That's the power of a love team that became part of pop culture. A reunion doesn't have to mean going back. Perhaps the biggest misconception is that Alden and Maine need to become AlDub again. They don't. They can reunite as Alden and Maine. They can work together while respecting the careers they've built separately. They can create something new without pretending that 2015 never ended. In fact, that could make a reunion even more meaningful. Instead of trying to recreate the past, they could show fans how far they've come. So why has it been difficult? The simplest answer is that there isn't necessarily one dramatic reason. It could come down to schedules, project availability, creative decisions, career directions, management considerations, and the enormous expectations surrounding their names. And unless Alden or Maine themselves publicly confirm a specific reason for not working together, fans should be careful about turning speculation into fact. What we do know is that both have continued building their own careers, and sometimes two people can respect each other while simply not having the right project at the right time. But imagine if tamang panahon happens again. There is something almost poetic about the idea. Years ago, fans waited for Alden and Maine's characters to finally meet. They called it tamang panahon, the right time. Today, some fans are waiting again, not necessarily for AlDub to return exactly as it was, but for Alden and Maine to find the right story, the right script, and the right moment to share the screen again. Maybe that project hasn't arrived yet. Maybe it will. And maybe when it finally does, the wait will make the moment even sweeter. Because sometimes the most anticipated reunions aren't the ones that happen quickly. They're the ones people have been quietly hoping for all along. Alden and Maine may have moved forward, but for many fans, the door to one more unforgettable collaboration will probably never completely close.